Welcome to another Blue Room Weekly with me, Warren, and joining me this week, I've got Paul McPartland. I'm making his weekly debut this week. We've got John Wharton with us, and I've been really pleased this week, both. It's been a fantastic week. It's been a great week to be an Evertonian with obviously the first game at the Hill Dickinson against Brighton, and what a result that was. And then last night, as we record now, we had our first cup game against Mansfield, and Everton safely into the half for the next round, facing Wolves away, who ironically we face this Saturday as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Paul, I mean, it was a routine cup win, as I said, but it just it was just off the back of what's been a really great week, isn't it? And it's good to see Everton play so well in both games, and then get through last night as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was also really encouraging to see that we appear to be taking the cup seriously for once as well. I mean, Moyes put out a really strong team of thoughts as well. And I know we won in the end quite comfortably. You know, 1-0, you're always a bit concerned that one mistake and suddenly Mansfield are back in it. And I think the atmosphere last night was really good in every aspect because, I mean, they brought 6,000 fans there last night. So although the home end is really noisy when we get going, when the away fans get going for cup games, those sort of noise, it really adds to the atmosphere as well. Yeah, I mean, it was, to me, these are always quite difficult games because everyone goes there expecting you to win. And then the opposition team, taking low league, League One, will just sit back, just trying to hit on the break occasionally. It makes it really hard to break down. The crowd start getting a bit impatient. You wonder if that gets to the players. But we kept playing our normal game. This goal at the start of the second half really settled things down. And from then on, there was no way we weren't going to go through. So an encouraging performance. And if you'd said to me after the Leeds debacle that we'd win our next two games at home, score 4 goals, not concede any, then I'd have gladly taken that. So win the next round of the League Cup now. We've got our first league win of the season under our belt. So we've got Tyler Dibbling survived as well. So if the things are looking a bit more positive, I'm worried that I'm starting to feel slightly optimistic. I always try to discourage myself from feeling that about Everton.
Well, this is the new look, Everton, and I suppose with everything going on, we can start to feel optimistic. And it was like we said, John, it was a good win to get us through to the next round. I think it's important. I think, like Paul said, it's you put a good team out and you reap the rewards. We didn't look as if we were going like a full second string. I know a few people came in and played who didn't maybe start the game against Brighton. But I thought it was a lovely goal from Alcaraz. Beto obviously came on and got his goal as well, which I think is good for him, even, albeit against Mansfield. But was there anyone in particular, John, for you who stood out or who performed well in the game last night?
Harrison Armstrong, I know that's the one everyone's going to say, but he looked more composed in the middle than I'm used to seeing a lot of our midfielders. He's not afraid of getting the ball and taking it, whether there's a man near him or not. But also, something I don't think anyone's really mentioned is in the first half, he had that chance where he could have put the ball through to Tierno Barry, but he went for the shot, which was just... And then he had almost exactly the same situation in the last minute to set up Beto, and he played the ball instead. So he's a player who learns from his mistakes, rather than... It would have been easy, especially for an 18-year-old, to get that sight of goal, the white to the keeper's eyes, and try and lash the ball harder this time. But instead, he remained composed and just put the ball across on a plate for Beto.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, as you two know, I was actually travelling back from the States, so I didn't actually see the game, but all the reports I've heard and everything I have seen on Harrison Armstrong is that he just looked, like you said, John, so composed and did so well. And I think the Everton seemed to be reaping the rewards of that low move that he had to Derby, and who knows what will happen with Armstrong. Maybe that's just put a thought in David Moyes' mind that maybe it would be worth keeping him on. But I suppose the most important thing for him is to get minutes on the pitch. And if we'll talk a little bit later about, do we need anything else in the squad now? And if someone else does come in, I think maybe for his development, it would be worth him going out on loan again. But we'll talk a little bit about that later on. I do want to mention, Paul, about Tyler Dibbling, because it was his debut. He did come off the bench, and you mentioned him earlier on yourself. And I know we only had a small glimpse of maybe what Tyler Dibbling can bring, but what were your initial impressions of him? It certainly does look like someone or a player who wants the ball and is happy to have the ball, and maybe not afraid to shirk that responsibility. And it's good to see that, and good to see someone like that in a blue shirt, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I like the way when he came on the pitch, you could see he's got a lot of confidence in his own ability. He's prepared to try things on. He's prepared to run at defenders. He's prepared to twist, turn, play the ball back, get into space. So you don't want to build somebody up too much, because we've done this in the past with Everton prospects, where they look quite good for the first 20 minutes of their appearance and then they kind of struggle after that. But for a young 19-year-old, he had a real sense of being really self-assured about his ability. And there was one bit. I don't know if you, I know you haven't seen it, Warren, but there was one bit towards the end of the second half where Seamus Coleman had the ball and he was looking for Dibbling to run into space for it, and Dibbling didn't make the move, and Seamus turned around and started wagging his fingers at him straight away. So it's good that you've got experienced players in the team as well who will let them know what's expected when you play for Everton also. But I like the roll down socks look. He just had that impishness about him. And you can look at the contrasting ages now in midfield now, and the talent that we have. You've got Grealish, who's nearly 30. Tyler Dibbling is only 19. But yeah, I was very pleased with his performance so far. Whether he starts again at the weekend, I'm not quite sure. I think he comes off the bench. And you mentioned before that when you asked John about which player impressed you most last night, I have to say the player who impressed me most was Seamus Coleman. For his first game back in a long, long time, played the full 90 minutes, never got caught out for position or for pace. And I know he's not going to play every week, but I think when you need Seamus Coleman to come in and fill what has been a hugely problematic position for Everton the last 4 or 5 seasons, and I think Seamus has got the capacity and the physical strength and, of course, the experience to slot in there.
I agree. I think it was absolutely brilliant to see Seamus firstly be able to start the game and get through the game as well, because I know he was perhaps wanting to play the full game in the last game against Southampton and had to come off injured. And look, we know he's aging and we know that he's had a few injury problems and we might not get a full 38 game season out of him these days. But if he can come and contribute, John, and do what he did last night, I mean, the thing for me as well, Coleman as well as part of that. But I looked at the bench last night, and it was actually that Everton had options to bring on if we needed to. And with it being Mansfield, it was a good opportunity to give different players a chance and an opportunity. Good to see James Garner, for instance, come back into the middle of the midfield as well. But for you, John, I mean, it's looking like we've got some options there, but one player in particular I do want to talk about. And I was listening to post-match, and I thought, I can't remember who it was who said it, but I think it might have been Matt Flusk who said about Dwight McNeil. And he said, it's not that Dwight McNeil didn't look like he put in any effort, or it wasn't like he lacked sort of any intensity in his game last night, but he said that he just clearly had the demeanour of somebody who realises they're a little bit down the pecking order now. And it's all great having a healthy squad, but for someone like McNeil, he just doesn't look... It looks like he realises that there's a couple of players who come in who are maybe ahead of him now. And did you get that sense last night? And what did you make of his performance? Is there a future for McNeil, do you reckon? Or do you think that's one of the players that we may look to move on before the window shuts?
I think we'll keep him definitely until the end of the season, because he is still a player who, on his day, can make some change and provide something a bit different. We've got a lot of the players who can get into the box and get balls into the box and create little passes and little intricate moves, but we haven't really got someone who can just thrash it from the outside of the area and hit it in, like he can do. So I think he might keep him for that, but I think his days are numbered. But I know he's had a tough time personally over the last couple of years. So I'm wondering if a lot of that's the stress of what's been going on for him as well. So I wouldn't write him off just yet, but he is symptomatic of the fact that you see this in teams as they start to progress. The players who you thought, they look quite decent. I mean, I'll give you an example. It's Paul, I remember him, Lee Martin, who played for United, come through, burst through onto the scene. Everyone thought he was the next best thing. Played left back, scored the winning goal in the cup final in 1990. By 91, he was gone. And he was replaced by Dennis Irwin. And I think that's the kind of thing. He's good for where we were, but I don't think he's quite good for where we're going. So
I really do think it's an interesting one, Paul, with McNeil, because he's still quite a young boy himself. I think he's only 23, 24, so he's not even reached his prime or his peak. And think he does offer some ability to us, particularly on set pieces, and he has got a wand of a left foot. I mean, he scored some cracking goals for Everton in the past, and I actually would like him to stay. I think he could be useful, in and around the squad, and it's just, I suppose, whether he thinks he wants more game time or whether he's willing to fight to get to a position where he can be like a guaranteed starter. But it just doesn't feel like that with McNeil now, and I just do wonder whether he is in David Moyes' thoughts long term. I'm not too sure. How about you?
Yeah, well, I can't agree with the point that John was making there as well. That, I think for the last 2 or 3 seasons, McNeil has clearly been one of our stand-up performers. Now we've kind of improved the quality of the squad a little bit. He's actually getting put under pressure. Yeah, I mean, I like McNeil. I think he's got an eye for goal, as you said there, One. I remember his winning goal away in Nottingham Forest last season. The goal he settled for Ducournau in Nottingham Forest last season, that pass that took 4 defenders out the game. Scored a cracking goal against Liverpool in the Derby game as well. I mean, to me, he's a really good footballer. I still think he's the best set-piece corner taker at the club. You saw that again last night. His corners were just so much better than what anybody else could deliver. But I think the question about McNeil has always been his lack of pace. And I think in a team, a Sean Dyche team, you're sitting back a lot of the time, so you can get away with not having that pace. I think if you play more adventure style of football, maybe that's not quite his game. But I agree with you, Warren. I think McNeil feels as though Moyes doesn't see him in his starting 11. I think Moyes has kind of made it quite clear that he sees Dewsbury Hall as a more effective operator there. But I'd be very unhappy to see him go because I agree with John. I think we need to keep McNeil to the end of the season. And of course, you don't know what's going to happen over the course of the season. You don't know what injuries are going to come in. So you need to keep the squad as big as possible. Obviously, if you keep going in the cup runs, then straight away there's more opportunity there for the squad players to get a look in as well. But I would definitely keep McNeil. But I agree with what you said there before, that he does look a bit out of sorts at the moment. He does look, I wouldn't say he looked disinterested, but he wasn't quite the McNeil I've noticed over the past 2 or 3 seasons or so. But I suppose really that's down to the manager now, to make sure if you're bringing in better quality players, as John said there, you've got to make sure that the players who get phased out, that you've got them involved in some way. Or if you feel they're not going to contribute, then you have a decision to make whether to have a future at the club or not.
Yeah, it's a long, hard season as well, and I think you're going to need every player available at your disposal. I mean, we're going to get injuries, we're going to get suspensions, there's going to be different things going on down the road, people taking knocks and whatnot. So I think that to have a squad, and I think at this moment in time, I think I'm more inclined. I know a lot of people are saying they think that he might end up leaving, but I think at this moment in time, it's definitely someone who I'd say keep around the place and keep around the squad, and it's up to him, I suppose, to fight his way back in. And I do agree with what you've both said. I think on his day, he can give us good performance and can be a threat, but he's just got to find that level of consistency. He's still a young player, so maybe he can, still find that. And it brings me on actually to talking about, as we record, Paul and John, it's 4 days from the transfer deadline window closing. And I know there's a lot of talk that we still might bring 1 or 2 in. I suppose, though, John, looking at it, the re-emergence of Coleman to a degree playing that full 90, I know we can't fully trust him. Right back has been a situation that we've been looking at, but can we trust Coleman to be available at all times? We don't know. There's been a lot of talk about filling that position for, all summer, really. But if the window was to shut tonight and it was to close now and Everton didn't bring anyone else in, would you be satisfied with that, or do we still definitely need 1 or 2 more?
I think we need 3. I think we need a right back, because we're saying about this window, but the right back isn't just a issue for this window. Other than Seamus Coleman, we have, Seamus Coleman has undoubtedly been the standout of our right backs over the last 40 years since Gary Stevens left. We haven't, we've had a coterie of right backs that have come in and have been underwhelming, and we've been trying to get this replacement for Coleman for 8 years now. So we're talking nearly 16 transfer windows and we still haven't replaced them. So yeah, we need something. Jake O'Brien's not a right back. As much I know Moyes likes to play his centre halves as full back for a bit to get them acclimatised, like he did with Lescott. But we need a specialist right back. We need someone for those times when you see it yourself. He occasionally puts in a good cross, O'Brien, but most of the time he's not. It's not his role to cross the ball. He's not been trained to cross the ball. So we need a specialist right back in, definitely, and we need a central midfielder to replace Garner Gay, because as well as he played on Sunday, he's going to AFCON, and he's a lot. Sometimes you see these players in the mid-30s. It's not a gradual decline. Sometimes they just go. Like, remember Gary Neville when he was a bit younger than Gay, when he retired halfway through chasing back Bojan, wasn't it? Was it, or was it someone like Matthew?
Yeah, it was at West Brom, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Brunt. Yeah, he retired halfway through chasing him back down. So we have to be careful, and you need to future-proof the current team as well. So, and we need a striker.
Yeah, I think Paul. And I think Paul, that looking at it now, I think if it was the end of the window now, I think I'd be satisfied, because I think we brought in players and we've addressed issues. But I think John makes a great point there about the central midfield. I think for me now it's almost emerged as another really key spot, because we've seen that if there's an injury, in the back line, for instance, James Garner has been someone who's filled in there, and then that leaves a bit of a gap and a bit of a space. And then with Idrissa Gueye going to the African Cup of Nations, I think that's going to be a huge miss. I hope the club now are planning for his successor and have got people in mind, maybe a transfer window or two down the line to replace Garner Gay, because he's been absolutely brilliant for Everton. And I mean, he was well in with the shout for being Player of the Year last year. No, we're only a couple of games in, but like John said, it could be a gradual decline with a player his age. He's still looking strong. He's still looking very capable, but we're going to need to address that situation. I think John makes a great point. Does central midfield, Paul, for you become as big a priority now, or is it a case of we need to get that right back position that we've coveted all summer? Is that the position we need to get sorted going forward?
Well, I'd argue we need both, Warren. And I think maybe with the midfield as well, don't forget, we're going to be losing Ndai for the AFCON as well. So that's two of our regular starters who are not going to be available for 6 weeks. And particularly with Garner Gay's age, he's coming back, as John said, 35. He's doing a stint in the Cup of Nations as well in Africa. Then he's coming back to the Premier League. It's a lot to ask of somebody his age. I do have my concerns, as John raised there, that maybe some stage it might just go for him physically. Yeah, right back. I mean, come on. It's like Groundhog Day, this, isn't it? This has gone on season after season after season. Yes, we clearly need a right back. I mean, Nathan Patterson is just never going to make it ever since he's been there 4 years now. Never got close to making that spot his own. Managers at first to play Ben Godfrey and Jake O'Brien, and actually younger right back over Nathan Patterson when he's been fit. So I don't think Patterson has a future at the club. I agree with John that, yeah, I think I mentioned this on the last one, Warren, that I just feel we need a backup striker. I mean, it's good having Barry and Beto who can take each other's place, but they're very similar types of forwards. And I just think, and it's hard to identify that's what type of player I'm talking about here, but I'm kind of looking like an experienced forward, 31, 32, who's maybe just dropped down to the Championship or something, or who's playing in a lower Premier League team, who's looking for the move somewhere, knows not going to be a regular starter, but knows he'll get 20, 25 minutes each game, just to offer an alternative, because I still think we haven't quite sourced out that striker position yet. Being quite encouraged by Barry, it's one of those strange things, isn't it? At the game against Brighton, I didn't think he played that well, but when I watched the highlights, I saw he played quite a pivotal role in the 2 goals. So I kind of decided to reconsider what my opinion was of him. Thought he struggled a bit last night. I think, Beto could have a hat-trick last night. I was just thankful he managed to get that one in, because I did have my worries whether he'd get over the line or not. But I think, we do need reinforcers up front as well. And I think we need a utility-type player, something to slot in temporarily at right back, midfield, left back, like Ashley Young did for us as well. So as experience can just come in, doesn't expect stars every week, but when they come in, you're going to get a good performance out of them. Yeah, I mean, I've been quite positive about the transfer window so far, but considering we lost 10, 11 players during the summer, now I'd love to see another 1 or 2 signings getting over the line, because I just think as you mentioned before, Warren, given the demands of a Premier League campaign, you need as big a squad as possible. And I think it includes in that, I mean, the debate about Havertz and Armstrong. Yeah, I agree. If he's not going to be a regular starter, maybe send him out on loan. But if we did that, to have a recall option and maybe only loan to like January in the first instance, because I think he's a real prospect as well. So yeah, I would love at least one more signing to revive Finch Farm on Monday. Whether the Thomas Souček thing is still a possibility or not, I don't know. But someone like him would be a good acquisition for us as well.
Yeah, it still feels like there's manoeuvres to be made, and it still feels like even these late days in the transfer window that we still could make one or two more. I certainly think we will anyway, and I think we'll probably look to address the right back and centre midfield position. But yeah, it's interesting that you both said about a striker, and I think for me, I mean, penny for Dominic Calvert-Lewin's thoughts. I mean, he must be looking now and thinking, wow, that new stadium, Jack Grealish, Tyler Diblin, maybe if I'd have just signed a contract, he might have even been starting, who knows. I think he probably would have started ahead of Beto and Tieno Barry, but I think, obviously we've gone down that road. It was a good deal for everyone in the end that he moved on, and a fresh challenge for him and a chance for Everton to move on as well. But yeah, I just was watching that game the other night, the Leeds game, when they lost to Sheffield Wednesday, and I thought, wow, I wonder what he's thinking now after, we had an unfortunate performance there. And I just wondered whether he might have a slight regret or slight doubt in his mind about whether he should have stayed or not. But there we go. That's in the past now. And we are moving forward, and we are. Yeah. Go on, John.
I was going to say, he probably would have turned up at Nelson's, the amount of way he misses things at the moment.
Do you know what? I like Dom, and I think, he did great for us, but I'm not going to miss him missing them one-on-ones. I'm really not. No. But anyway, we're not here for that. We're here to talk about the future and looking ahead. And ahead, John, coming back to you, we've got Wolves, who, like I mentioned earlier, ironically, we've been drawn against in the Carabao Cup as well. And just on the draw first, before we talk about Saturday, I mean, it could have been better. We could have had another home draw against lower league opposition, but Wolves away, certainly nothing to fear, is it? For Everton, it's a decent draw, isn't it, if we can get over the line in that one?
Not in the cup, no. The cup, I think we'll win the cup game. I don't think. I'm glad we didn't get Vita Pereira as manager. I'm glad we didn't go down that route. I know Lampard and Dyche was a circuitous route to where we got to now, but I think he would have been a complete and utter disaster for the club. So
he had that start, didn't he, at Wolves, where it went well and he was picking up points and he did quite a good job. Yeah. But it just feels, I mean, some of it's not his own fault. They've had to sell, obviously, players, and it doesn't look like they've recouped or replaced them players that they've sold. Like Cunha's the obvious one to Man United, but it doesn't feel like they've replaced it well enough at the moment, does it?
Now, when I look at their squad, I look at it like, do you know when you played 20 years of Football Manager and you start to get the regens? That's what a lot of their players' names are. I think I've got a reasonable knowledge of football, but I couldn't pick out Martial Manezzi from Fabio Silva now. Only Fabio Silva's curly hair. I know he's left, but you know what I'm saying? They're a team full of players that you've never heard of, and that's a worrying sign because they're not like Brighton, who bring these lads you've never heard of and actually turn them into diamonds. They just seem to stay lumps of coal and they don't seem to. They've got progressively worse. They've gone from Matinho, Neves, Jimenez to Martial Manezzi, who, he's only scored one goal for them so far, and you can guess who that was against.
Well, one player they do have, John, just quickly before I move on to speak to Paul about what he thinks about Wolves. Strand Larson, who's obviously been linked with a move to Newcastle. I'm not sure if he'll play on Saturday, whether or not.
He will play Saturday because they just had a bid, Newcastle accepted, for Nick Woltemade, the German.
Okay. So it looks like Newcastle have maybe turned attention, but I did see some of the cup game they had against West Ham, where they overturned that deficit and went on to win the game against West Ham. And he scored 2 on the night, and the bits I saw of him, he did look like a very capable and very handy striker. He's one to watch out for, obviously. Yeah. But I think I agree with you. I think there's not much there to worry about. Everton should be going in looking to win this one on Saturday, shouldn't he?
Yeah, but we won't. Not because I'm being cynical.
Do you not think?
No, there's a reason, a specific reason. It's my birthday Saturday, so I apologise in advance. Never do well on my birthday. So
Yeah, we had the mailbag the other week, and you were talking about that very thing. You were saying about on your birthday we never seem to win. But I mean, Paul, as we were just saying there, I look at Wolves and I do have concerns. I think if we were in their position now, I'd be concerned as a Wolves fan. You've just sold your best player in Matheus Cunha. You're just leading striker at the moment, even though we may look to be staying now. There has been rumours about him leaving the club. Still might happen before the end of the transfer window. I'm with John. I don't feel like they've replaced or got people in who are the level that you need to be, and certainly the level of players that John mentioned there that they've had previously, like the likes of Moutinho and different players down the years, him and Neves who've been at Molineux. And I don't know. I mean, I just feel that if Everton want to climb the table and if Everton want to be climbing up towards the top end, and particularly the top end of that mid-table group, these are games we've got to look to be winning, isn't it? And I mean, we certainly can't be going into it sitting back like we did against Leeds.
No, I mean, I think it would be quite a fascinating game, John's birthday aside, on Saturday, because I think as well, you got I think Wolves are, to me, are where Everton were about 2 seasons ago, having to sell their best players to comply with the PSR rulings and things like that. And you just see a club at the moment that's really struggling to have any sense of identity. Totally agree with John. Yeah, the Football Manager Regens, yeah, absolutely is, John. I look at some of the players, and I asked my son, who's quite knowledgeable about this sort of stuff, and he hasn't heard it off them either. So, yeah, you've got a team there that when I was trying to think which teams I fancy to go down this season. I had Wolves definitely going down this season because I'm not sure Pereira is the man to actually get them out of trouble this season. I can't see them bringing in any players. And I can still see a situation in January where someone comes in with a bit of Strand Larsen, he leaves, and they're really in trouble then as well. I think the question is more about which Everton turns up for this game. Is it the Everton that turned up against Brighton Hove Albion, or is it the Everton that turned up at Elland Road? If it's the Everton that turned up at Elland Road, then I'm quite concerned, because the only niggling down some mind is I really wish West Ham had beaten them in the League Cup on Wednesday and flattened the spirits a bit more. But you just suddenly see now they've come back from being a few goals down. They've won the League Cup game. The car's back behind the manager again. So it's a slightly different atmosphere to maybe what we would have faced if they'd lost in the League Cup game. I mean, Molineux is always a difficult ground to go to. I don't think we've got the best of records there over the seasons as well. So I know it sounds as though I'm hedging my bets here, but if we came away from that, obviously we'll be delighted with the win, but we go then get a point. Well, it's another point. It's another game without defeat. I kind of agree, with you on that. We should be going this win. I totally support that, but I'm looking, Michael Keane and James Tarkowski, who's not had the best start of the season, has to be said, up against Strand Larsen, getting bombarded with crosses. I see that being a real difficult area for us, particularly the right-back situation as well. So I think it's important. I think it's important for us that we keep tight first 20 minutes or so. Try and get the lead. I think if we score first, we go on to win the game. Everyone being, hugely optimistic. Yeah, we should be winning this game comfortably. But start of the season, they've just got their first win. 3:00 Saturday, the fans are up for it. Could be a bit more difficult than we anticipate.
Just looking at the first 2 results in the Premier League this season, I mean, they opened up with a heavy defeat against Man City at Molineux, losing 4-0. And then the last game against Bournemouth, they went down there and lost 1-0 as well. So they haven't scored yet, even though we're talking about the potential threat. And, I know they have that result against West Ham, but West Ham have obviously struggled as well. So it kind of feels like they do lack the quality. And I suppose, John, Paul makes a great point there. I think if we score first, looking at that record that they've had in the first 2 games, that puts the real pressure on them. It's nice to go into a game, isn't it, where the pressure's on the other team. And I think that what our 2 results we've just had recently has just given us that little bit more confidence, especially as fans. But one thing I want to mention there, what Paul said, the potential threat with our defensive setup. I mean, Mykolenko was back last night, and I think that offers us a bit more balance in defence. So hopefully that'll see us through. But looking at the other end, I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about Jack Grealish and the impact he's had already. And one thing for me, which I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, is we've got now real balance ourselves going forward. I know that we've talked earlier in the show about the potential of another striker and what that may mean and what that might bring. But I just love now, John, the fact that, we looked at Iliman and Jai as our threat last year. And I think when teams sussed that out, and quickly doubled up on him. We didn't have a lot else last year. Now I look at it and I go, well, on one side we've got Njai, on the other side we've got Grealish. We've also got Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, who I know hasn't maybe got in goal scoring positions yet, but has played so well and been so efficient in that pocket of space just behind the striker. It's nice watching Everton having threats all over the park, and that's going to cause Wolves issues. And I think, the likes of Grealish and Njai are going to relish a chance again on Saturday to attack these. And it's nice to see Everton with different threats all over the pitch.
Well, you saw on Sunday with Brighton, who are probably one of the more attacking teams in the league, who, they like to play football. They doubled up and sometimes trebled up on Grealish. And what that does then, it creates the space for other players. So if they're doubling up on Grealish and then doubling up on Ndiaye, there's space then for players like Dewsbury-Hall, who likes to bomb forward from midfield. There's space there for him to do that. And we, as you say, we haven't had that threat for a while. And I've just been looking there at Wolves' lineup against Bournemouth on Saturday. And as we were saying, there's only a couple of players whose names are recognised. But they're probably their main defender is that Totti Gomez. And he's suspended, isn't he? Or was he suspended for Tuesday?
I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure if I'm honest. Yeah.
I thought, wasn't it now that you're suspended for the competition you're sent off in?
No, I think
brought that in. Oh, so well, either way.
No, I think if you're suspended in whatever, if it's English competition, you're suspended in it. Yeah.
He's still no great loss anyway. Great opponent. But you were saying about Paul was saying about Tarkowski and that, and I think part of the problem's been not you throw the balls into him and Keane and they'll head them and volley them away all game. The problem was against Leeds was their Leeds' main striker was Joel Piroe, and while he's a big unit, he's not that kind of player. He likes to drop out the box a little bit, and I think they were struggling with his position and where he was, and I think that was what was causing a lot of the confusion in defence. So I think with them playing Strand Larsen, the whole Strand Larsen situation just shows how ridiculous the current transfer market is. I've seen him play. He's okay. He's okay. I wouldn't rave about him, but now he's a £60 million player. And, that's not because he's worth 60 million. That's because of the ridiculous, a certain club did saturate the market earlier in the summer with ridiculous transfer fees for players that may well turn out to be really good players, but are not worth that amount of money. So everyone else now is thinking, well, we've got an average player here, so he's worth 50 million. We're now getting to that point now of we're getting into a really stupid season now. And I think because of that, as football fans, all of us, and I include myself in this, we're all a little bit knee-jerk, we're all a little bit reactionary. So we see a player and the media going, 60 million. We go, oh, he must be good. But then you just got to sit back a little bit and rationalise and think, well, what is he, 23, 24? Strand Larsen? And his career so far has been his best club he's played for is Wolves. So he's no great shakes. Tarkowski's nothing Tarkowski and Keane haven't seen a million times before. So
it shouldn't be something to fear. But I think we've seen these type of things, haven't we, down the years, biters in the backside, and I think that
Matt Smith of Oldham terrify our defence. We've seen, Charlie Austin, a 62-year-old Charlie Austin, when he played for QPR in that cup game. So I'm not ruling him out. I'm just saying that I think his game is...
I think it's nothing to fear, is it?
Yeah, his game is what Tarkowski lives for. It's the clever, slightly clever players.
Yeah, I think
not put him in that, take him out of his comfort zone that Tarkowski struggles with.
Yeah, and I think you're right there. I think that if Strand Larsen wants to go toe to toe with our, even Michael Keane as well, who I think started the season well, I think that, like you said, John, that's going to be ideal for our centre back pairing. Just on the team itself, then, Paul. I mean, I'm of the opinion it pretty much picks itself. I think that if Mykolenko has come through unscathed last night, then he starts, which allows James Garner to go back in the middle alongside Idrissa Gana Gueye, which will probably mean that Tim Abuna, who I thought grew into the game against Brighton and actually did okay in the end in that game after such a poor performance against Leeds. But I think he'll probably look to go that way. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think the only real decision to be made on Saturday is who starts up front. Is it Barry or Beto? Which one does Moyes go for? Who does he feel is the one most informed? But I think personally, I'd be inclined to start with Barry, given Beto had quite an anonymous performance away at a road and give him this chance to show what he can do. I was really hoping that actually Barry would have scored last night in the League Cup tie, because it would just take all the pressure off him as well, and he would have gone into the Wolves game full of confidence. So I was really quite frustrated. He never really got a clear cut chance to get a goal to his name. But yeah, I think the team more or less picks itself. As you said, there was with Mikel coming at left back, and then allowing Garner to move to midfield. Yeah, I agree with Tim Irabona. He's shown some. He was quite good in the game against Brighton as well. And I think, as you kind of both said before, we've got options on the bench now. So I think in the past, I wasn't a big fan of the 5 substitute thing. I'm probably still not, but that was mainly because we didn't have the squad to bring 5 good players off the bench. Yeah. But I think that times have changed now. I think as you said before, man, we've got options on the bench. We haven't just got options. We've got game-changing options. We've got people who can come on and suddenly turn the game back in our favour again as well. So, I just it's good to have that strength and depth. Going back to my earlier point, I think the only decision to be made on Saturday is who starts. Does Barry get the nod, or does Beto get the nod?
Yeah, I agree. I think Beto looks like he could be useful off the bench. I mean, if we're 1-0 up, for instance, and you bring or 2-0 up and you bring him on and the game's stretched, it's perfect for him, because the opposition are going to go for it, and that's going to leave spaces in behind. And we all know that Beto's probably at his best when he's got space to run into in front of him, and that's how he scored some of his goals. I think back to the Newcastle results a couple of years back when we won 3-0 at home, and he just ran down that right hand side and slotted in. And he had a good opportunity, I think, against Brighton as well, where he completely just dribbled past their player, and luckily he was forced. Unluckily for us, he was forced a little bit wide and couldn't get his shot away. But in those moments, you could see his strength, and I think maybe off the bench, definitely for Beto, he would be a threat. But yeah, I agree. I think I'd probably lean towards starting Barry. I've been impressed with Tierno Barry, and I think I don't know if you both saw what Thierry Henry said about him on Monday Night Football, about the way he creates space for others and how he created the space that allowed Iliman Ndiaye to score that opening goal against Brighton. So he certainly looks like, at the moment, still very raw, but definitely someone with a lot of potential, and I've been impressed with him so far. So look, what I will do, we'll finish off the show with a couple of score predictions. John, Everton Wolves on Saturday. What do you think it's going to be? I know it's your birthday, and I know you're not always hopeful and not always expecting a win, but give us your realistic results.
I'll pretend it's the 26th of August then. 3-1 Everton.
3-1. Paul?
I just think... Oh, sorry, go on.
Go on, John, Karen.
Go on, John. Finish off. Go on.
I just think we are at a point now where we're a cut above Wolves, and we've got to start showing that now, because our record at Molineux's poor. We've only won twice there, I think, and we won 3-0, didn't we, back in under Moyes, and then we won 2-1 in COVID during COVID, didn't we? That are only 2 wins since I know they've spent a lot of time out at the top flight, but we've, before that, the last time we played the top flight, we lost 3-0, didn't we, Paul, in December '83 against them, and looked abject. So we were still not forgiving them for that.
I've wiped that all from my memory.
John makes a good point, Paul. I think we've got to now look to be going to these type of teams and looking to win. I mean, when Leeds results aside, we had a really good away record last season, when, especially after Moyes came in, we picked up a few results on the roads, and this feels like a game, doesn't it, that Everton needs to take advantage of. What would your prediction be for Saturday?
Well, beforehand, I would have gone for a 1-1 draw, but since it's John's birthday, we've got to have a reason to celebrate, haven't we? So I'm going for a 2-1 win for Everton to celebrate John's birthday as well.
Yeah, I mean, this may come back to bite me, but I just feel that this is the game, or this is the type of game now that Everton should be looking to go into and win. I think the Leeds game probably came a week too soon for us, but now these players are in, some of these new signings are in. We've got the likes of Diblin to bring off the bench if we need to. We've got options in the squad, and I agree with you, John. I think players now who are a little above what Wolves can offer. So I'm going to stick my neck on the line. I think we're going to keep another clean sheet, I'm going to tune Everton. But let's hope that the good feeling that surrounds the club at the moment. It's been a brilliant week, with that first game and everyone talking so highly and so positively, not just about the stadium, but about how well the team performed and getting that, great first result for us. And then that carried over into Mansfield, which, albeit a route against the low team, but it puts us in the next round. So it's been a fantastic to be in Everton, and to hope to continue. We'll leave it there. And I just want to say a massive thank you again to Paul and for John coming on this evening. Don't forget to keep all your content, all your listening to us on here on the Blue Room. We've got plenty of content coming up. The lads will be back with post-match on Saturday. We've got mailbag, as always, before the weekend starts. And then after the Wolves game, we'll have all your usual stuff, like your Blue Monday and your byline with Matt and with Paddy's show. And then we'll be back, obviously, as well, with a weekly next week. So keep us listening on the Blue Room. If you are watching us on YouTube, do subscribe to us on there. And if you do listen to us on the pod, just make sure you follow us on there as well. And then every time a new pod drops, that'll go straight into your phone, ready to listen. So, as I said, we'll leave it there. It's been another great week for the Blues, and hopefully we'll see a result against Wolves up the Toffees.